Oh,
So I'm just going to roll video right now.
all right.
And roll sound.
All right. It's like getting your flu shot. Here
Yeah,
it goes.
you just wow.
Laura House,
Okay, that's
welcome
fair.
to the art. Thank you so much for coming and doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
And I've had guests on the show from Comedy Film Nerds and from the podcast festival and the podcast world.
Oh, got it.
But you are one of my favorite artists in terms of your comedy. I know you're like
amazing.
you're giving me that look like, is she for real?
No,
Is
it's
that a
very
bunch of
sweet.
BS? No, it's genuine, and you know because I reach out to you online. I'm always on the Twitterverse.
Yeah.
And I
was preparing myself for a compliment. Like, oh, okay, here it comes.
Here it comes.
I'll take it.
I am in the face of that voice in your head. Voice in Laura's head. I am in your face.
Step aside, how to hate yourself voice.
Step off. How to hate yourself voice because I love Laura.
That's
Your-
really great.
Your
Thank you.
comedy is so genuine and so real. And as I let you know, several of my friends got your comedy album for their birthday.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks to the ability that on iTunes, all you need is someone's email address
Oh,
and you can send them. Now, in my friend's birthday age bracket, I had 2 friends that I had to resend the gift to. 'Cause they're like, what was that? I deleted that. I don't know
Right.
what that is. Did I get that email? So,
yes,
like,
I understand.
here it is. It's the iTunes with the little picture of a box with a bow on
It's
it.
so funny. And then you download it. What? Where do I?
Yeah, and then where does
Yeah.
it go?
I described to a woman what a podcast was today. And I was like,
Yeah?
maybe this is my mission.
Yeah.
For the 50 plus crowd, I seem like a safe space to them. And I
Okay.
can describe, because she was like going a really long road trip. And I was like, you might want to try podcasts. And she was like, what do you like? What are the things? She literally, and then I got so jealous in a way of like, she just woke up to podcasts today, and she's like I was teaching meditation. She's in that group, so I was just assuming things about her, and I had to like state like, you know what? I'm making some assumptions here. Stop me. Like maybe you're into death metal. I don't know, but I was like, Anne Lamott has a podcast. Like I'm just offering up like she does, and she's like, oh okay. I was like. All things everything on NPR is like it's pretty
Yeah.
clear who she is. She's a PBS.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's a Downton Abbey lady. So I was just like but also when I mentioned true crime, I talked about the first serial and she was like, there's what? I mean, she literally has never listened to a podcast and I was like, man, you're going to have a great Christmas. Like like you can't even it's like I just told you there's television.
Yes.
Like amazing.
Say you're welcome.
Yeah. So it is fun to have like people like a little bit older and like you just seem like the young cool one. No, you just download the thing. What?
Right. Here, let me help you out with that. So that's a big theme and I always thought, really, are there that many people that don't know what a podcast is?
Oh yeah.
But it's a big theme in Earbuds, the podcasting documentary,
Oh,
and at the podcast festival, people would talk about that. So after you gave her some examples, how did you explain to her what it is?
I showed her the app on my phone and I
Okay.
was like, go here and you can browse and they'll, like it's sort of set out for, she had a working understanding of how things were. And then I was like, download them
Yeah.
before you drive so you don't have to have a connect, the things you learn. But
Yes.
it is funny to just like, it is new media. And then to some people, it's real new media. It's like, oh, why would I like it's a huge thing in LA. Obviously, I'm in the entertainment industry, so we have to know about stuff. But like my friend in Virginia has never been prompted to listen to a podcast. Like it's,
Yeah.
so it's just not everybody who thinks about it or whatever. Anyway.
I did read in the
I think
podcast.
she'll get it. I feel good about
She'll
it.
get it.
Yeah.
And you've given her a great gift.
I do. I feel like I gave her a great. I feel like I can take credit for podcasts in her mind. Like you know what? I did that. Those hours of listening you're gonna enjoy. That's because of me. I'm an angel. I'm a podcast angel.
I think you're an angel in more than one way.
Oh boy!
Oh,
Come on,
boy,
you
come
guys.
on.
All right. There was. Speaking of terrible media, there was a tweet yesterday of a guy who, just on his own, is like listening to all the comedy specials and ranking them. And then he just posts this guy in Tulsa. So I was tagged in like, I just listened to Laura House's album and and he was putting the ranking. So the first half of that is neat, you know, and you assume like, you know,
Yeah.
oh, that's nice. Somebody listens to my album.
Yeah.
But it was not a high ranking. Like it wasn't even like top 50. And I was like, well, you just made me sad. Like now you just made me sad.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
But a ranking's
Maybe,
tough.
well, it's so funny the world we live in of like, I don't know. I still marvel at it of like, we just, it was just the people made a list. There were 3 lists, you know, like there were like Forbes has a list and People Magazine has a list and somebody else has a list. But now like we all have platforms and we all make a whole list. And so it's like, I wasn't this guy in Tulsa, Oklahoma's favorite. Like you have to filter that, but it is just it's weird to know, even to be like, oh, all right.
Everyone's a critic now.
Yeah, no, but literally everyone's a critic, which is why I love, like, I forget his last name, but Zach, there's a comic who's like, the top 1,000 comics, like, just to be like, I'll make a list that everyone's on. And then everybody gets to have fun with like, oh, I hope I make it.
If I can make it on
It's
there.
the top 1,000 comics of this year. We narrowed it down from 2,000. It's ridiculous.
And some of you didn't make the cut, sadly.
That's the one thing that your mind automatically goes to like, yeah, I probably didn't even get thought of and that whatever. It's
did I
ridiculous.
get
It's a
on
hard
there?
it's a hard time. Lists are hard.
So but your album is it's very relevant, it's very current, very now, and you recorded it in
you.
Portland.
Mouth Punch.
Mouth Punch.
It's yeah, I loved recording it. And we did at the Curious Comedy Theater, and that's Stacey Halal runs that. And it is a nonprofit comedy club,
Oh, wow.
which is so Portland. Like there's nothing is more Portland than that, unless they
co-op.
had their own smokehouse in the back and, you know, of course, a farm to table menu, you know, like it's just so Portland. And we only serve found snacks. I don't know what, like how much more Portland, you know, a like you open a business anyway. She's amazing. So they have classes and she has great shows. And then Epix just shot a special there, Unprotected Sets. One of the places they went to was Curious Comedy. It's a safe place. It's a burgeoning place. It's a hip place, like without being full of itself. It's great. And she reached out to me asking if I wanted to record, you know, if I wanted to like make a special. And so like it turned into an album. So everything about it was great for me.
Yeah. So how did you?
And you apparently too, since you enjoyed it. So
Oh my
that's
gosh.
good.
Yeah. Well, here's what happens. Here's what's
I'm glad.
funny.
I'm glad when it falls on receptive ears.
Yes, it definitely fell on receptive ears, and I think I saw it because you were promoting it online, and W. Kamau Bell promoted it as well online.
Yeah, it's nice of him.
I was like, oh, that'll be cool to check out, and God knows we all need a good laugh every now and then.
Oh yeah, more and more, right?
More and more.
Yeah.
But the
Legit,
that was
we just
annoying.
You were take a throw up break. Okay, we're back.
We're back.
We just had to think about the world for a minute. We're back.
Rebecca had to think about all the reasons she needs to laugh.
I mean, really.
But the so that's interesting that they reached out to you, because I was going to say so much of what you do, what I noticed is, one, I'm a fan of your work. You make me laugh. You make my friends laugh, and that's enjoyable. But what I notice is, so teaching meditation, your writing, your album, your shows that you produce, a lot of this is not just your creativity, but you create these things to make them happen.
I did, yeah. Well, one of the things I didn't mention, the Curious Comedy Theater and Stacey Halal do the All Jane Comedy Festival. So a few years ago, which is an all-female comedy festival. And when I was there, it was, Aparna Nancharla was there for sure. It's the greatest girls in the world. Maybe Kate Berlant was there, maybe, it's the funniest women, and we're never together. We were never on a show together. So there was one point, I think Sarah Schaefer was there that year, and all the funny women are there, and we were in like a green room together, like 12 female comedians, and somebody was like, oh, this literally is never allowed to happen. that we're all just in a room. Like we were all kind of looking at each other like zoo animals. Like, oh, how can I? Like you wanted to like Lionel Richie each other's face. Like, oh, can I just feel you? What do you like? This is amazing.
You're real.
Yeah, and getting to see each other and stuff. And so Caitlin Gill was there and Paige Hurwitz was there. And anyway, so that's how I knew Stacy was from the All Jane Festival, and I taught a class there. And so that was how she knew me, and that's why she invited me. So in a little, it was my hustle that got me in the door. I just want to stay on brand with you. Like I did have to make a move.
Yes,
Yeah.
I went for it. Well, and it's the art in life, but and oftentimes, the leading thing that we talk about is how people, regardless of what the outside perception is, or your own hesitation, or that voice in your head that you're talking about of doubt and shame, that you do the things that fulfill you anyway, that you find that path forward and you go for it. And clearing away the muck to get to what's really true and what feels right to do, or finding out, just doing it to find out if it's true and real for you. So that's absolutely that story.
Yeah.
Now, how did it turn into recording an album? You went to do a special.
We shot a special. I mean, it I love how you talk about, I guess there's two things, like the loftiness of you have a vision and you pursue it and you make this thing happen. And I think like that is what finished products look like from the outside. But really, we shot a special and nobody wanted to buy it. And then somebody said, why don't you make it an album? And then two people gave me a guy's contact at a place where they produce albums. And they were like, well, yeah, we'll make it as an, because we had the audio also, obviously. So I have a special sitting around if anyone wants to buy it. But they were for whatever reason, sometimes places just want to, and there's so many specials out now. It seems almost like, it seems almost like if you could put your special on the curb in front of your house, someone would come by and get it. Like it just seems like a time of like, isn't it raining specials? But I guess Netflix or everybody who's doing them, they want to do their own thing or they whatever, or I'm not camera ready. I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like I'm not sure the reality, and then what my worst voice reason, will come up with whatever reason. But it's like, anyway, it just didn't sell yet. That's the other way to put it. That didn't sell yet. But so we turned it into an album, which is great because also my friend Greg Barrett was like, people love albums. Yeah. He was like, let's be honest, like people love just making an album. Like people, it's almost more accessible in a way. So I was like, no, it's cool. And then I didn't know there's royalties. Like it's great to have an album, to be honest. So
yes.
And I forget also that you're supposed to constantly leave a trail of content. So it's nice to like put something out there that's like, oh yes, because I almost just do live shows and don't think about it. And then it's like, no, you want to, it's so basic to say out loud, but like you want to have something people can consume. If they enjoyed you, they can go get more of it or pass it along to a friend as you did, which I appreciate.
Got it. Yeah, I had not seen you live. I just heard the album.
Wow.
I want to go see your shows. I've heard you talk about your shows on Comedy Film Nerds. Those bastards.
Oh.
No, I'm just going to reference them so much that I have to say something like that because it just gets like, enough, Rebecca.
It can't just be fanning over them.
We know you love Chris and Graham and
that's
Aaron.
so funny.
But
nice shout out to Aaron.
Yeah,
we all know it's three guys.
I always
He's peeking out from behind them.
I always include Aaron.
We wouldn't even hear them if it weren't for Aaron. We would never have heard their voice.
Or have fact checking, or have the video, or
that's pretty funny.
Sometimes finish sentences.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So, and I get what that's like. I halfway through a sentence and trying to recall somebody's last name, like
Oh yeah, no, sentences are exhausting.
And what year was?
I almost never want to. Anyway, see what I did? So dumb. I was like, well, you have to do the bit. Right. It's just sitting there. Do the bit. Sentences, right? They're so. I'll keep going.
I wouldn't even ask you to do that.
So yes, art. And then the How to Hate Yourself show at the Improv. I just wanted to have a show at the Improv.
Yeah.
Is that weird? It's probably the only reason anyone has a show at the Improv. But
Yeah.
I guess I always feel not quite right for someone else's thing. And I hate that about how my brain works. But like when I was a young comic, so like I'm a 20s girl doing comedy and I'm not dumb. You know, like I used to get that comment all the time, like, oh, your comedy's so smart. And I felt like because my brain will exaggerate and like spit it back to me in like not what someone's, because I'll be like, smart, it's not like I'm an astronaut. Literally, that's how my brain works. Is like, like at like 25, people are like, God, you're so funny and you're so smart. It's great. And they basically just mean I'm not an idiot and I don't just talk about my boobs or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't just like not finish sentences on stage. You know, like I don't, it's not just going, remember the ice cream truck or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not, my standards were so unreasonably high for myself. So it's like people be like, oh, you're so smart. I'm like, well, it's not you went to Harvard or anything. I mean, I just went to a state school. So it's take a compliment is what I would tell my younger self. It's like just like, hey, young ladies and gentlemen. And so many people have that thing. So my point is like, so I was picked of 3 or 4 people to be on MTV, and we starred in their first sitcom. But I was like, oh, I'm not MTV. But like I was on MTV. There was nothing else I had to be. Right. I was enough. I was fine. They picked me. If it don't work out, that's their problem. Right? But I couldn't hold that in myself at that age. I was like, I'm bookish. I'm not hot. I'm not whatever I'm not.
Yeah.
And I've just done that my whole life. You know, people invite me to a thing and I'm like, oh, but I'm not, whatever. Just some weird way to not fit. It's honestly like, it's a version of arrogance, which it's unfortunate. You know, it's like, insecurity is a version of arrogance. Of
It
like,
is so true.
I'm too special to belong in this group, but I'm putting myself down, so I'm humble. And it's really just, I mean, by the time you figure it out, the party's over and you missed it anyway. But it's like, it's a real, you know, it's probably diagnosable, but and anyway, it's a weird level of like, you know, neurotic, insecure, whatever it is. But so when Jamie Flam was doing stuff at the Improv, I kept pitching because I finally knew someone. I was friendly with someone who was in a position to book stuff at the Improv, and I'd always just felt like, I'm this, and I don't even know how to. You have a monocle, you know. Like I don't know how to talk to anybody at the Improv, and then
They're not going to answer the phone.
Yeah, I was just like, I feel awkward around everything here. So, but Jamie and I were friends, and I kept pitching, you know, this kind of show or that kind of, and they're all just versions of stuff you've seen probably. But one time he said, he goes, you know what? He goes, I'm almost, and this is before he like made his own comedy club, but he was like, I'm almost bored with comedy. I'd almost rather cry. I'd almost rather be sad in a comedy show. And I go, here's an idea. And then I pitched him How to Hate Yourself because I had just done it as a solo show. Because I love the idea, like that thing into my head that I just talked about, and it's really arrogance, and I push this, is like, everybody has it. And it's a little bit hilarious. Like, it's not funny when I sit alone and feel like I don't belong anywhere. That's not funny. Like that's depression, and that's all kinds of, it leads to alcoholism. Nothing good comes of that.
Right.
But talking about it and then people going, oh my God, no, me too. And I didn't go to my brother's wedding because I gained 6 pounds or whatever everybody has so I love, and comics, comics come on and are pretty willing. I mean, a lot of stand-up falls under that of like, How to Hate Yourself. Like, when was I embarrassed? When was I, you know, how have I acted weird on dates or, you know, whatever is sort of like a lot of what stand-up is. And then also under the umbrella of How to Hate Yourself is like the cultural messages we get, you know, like, to me, all the beauty fixes for women are basically just saying, you're not right. You know, like there's like a pill you can take to make your eyelashes more lush. And I'm like, boy, that's how to hate yourself. You know, like if, when you walk by and you're like, I'm sure it doesn't completely damage my liver, a foreign chemical that I put in that's going to go in my mouth, do something here and make my eyelashes fluffy. Like, that's not something the human body is meant to ingest.
Right.
So,
I'm pretty sure it was discovered by mistake as a side effect from something.
yes, I'm sure they were trying to make like congestion medicine, and they're like, you know what, their eyelashes got great. Maybe we'll just send it over to Big Beauty over there and let them look. So anyway, that's how that show came about. And then sometimes I wonder if I should quit doing it. Like, sometimes I go, is it good for you mentally to do a show called How to Hate Yourself? But I hope it's obvious we're not really supposed to hate ourselves. So it's really just laughing at that.
Yeah.
All those messages, internal and external and internalized, you know, whatever else. And like, it's refreshing. And more than one comedian, like the last show, she had like a stunned look on her face at the end, and she goes, I feel better. And I was like, it's the point. Like
she came in ready for the deep dive.
She was she had not been on it, but she just seemed surprised at feeling uplifted at the end of it. And like, I mean, as you would correctly assume from someone who does comedy and teaches meditation, like, that is what I want. Like, I don't want to stand in front of you like Tony Robbins, but if I let myself, that I really would be like that. Like, I really would be, you guys, we got it. Let's pop. It's just, I'm too much from the 90s to it couldn't be more uncool to do that. But also I think some of that's fake, so I avoid it, and some of that, but like, I really do love like the Me Too moment in comedy. You know, that where like, I'm listening to this person, I'm listening to Chris Rock, and now I don't feel as alone.
Right.
He said this thing I couldn't put my finger on, and I feel more whole. Like, that's what comedy is, like, at its, you know, highest form. So I like to do like a version of that, of like, you know, but I don't want to call it the healing waters of comedy either. So to me, like, How to Hate Yourself is a little more like funny to me. So
I'm not sure people would show up for the healing waters of comedy.
I mean, not people I want to know. Like, I'd rather all day long be like, oh, it's called How to Hate Yourself. And because then I feel like people who get it. I mean, I just would never want it to sound hateful, but I guess it would to certain ears. But
it could if you're
like
taking
that guy
it
who
literally.
ranked me really low. He'd probably be like, "Wow, she's really negative."
I suspect he's familiar with a voice in his head that tells him how to hate himself.
he had no likes on any of these rankings, and I was like, "Okay, I'm not feeling it."
Yeah, don't get into that business. But you know, to each their own. That's what he's doing with his time. I like that you're calling it out. I mean, I think, and when you said that about the insecurity and arrogance, and by having a show, How to Hate Yourself, one, you're calling it out.
Yeah.
But also, I got the impression you were spoofing all of these damn shows on how to love yourself.
Yes.
Which is important. And I've definitely signed up for those.
I know, right?
But really, the market is saturated.
It's saturated, and it's also just like all the people making the lists. This comic called it out a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I thought it was so interesting. I don't remember his name, but he was like, everyone's a motivational speaker now. And I was like, that is really true. I mean, part of it, I think we do need to look at positive messages because of what's happening in the White House. I think like but like now the other half of us, like half of people were apparently upset for 8 years while my president was in office. And now the other half of the country is like, you know, the sky's on fire. And like, I certainly know my personal belief, but it is important to look at, but like everyone, it's like we all have a platform. We don't all need a platform, but now we have one. And now we have a weird responsibility to be like, well, what kind of content do I tweet or create? Like, I mean, literally, what do I retweet or create? And it all is going to have some vibe of whoever you are. And it's like, it's a weird, annoying thing that like humanity did not have to have 5 years ago. It's just a really weird, because if you don't, like you can, there's another thing too, like with, in my meditation studies, just don't. Just do your own thing. You know what? The party's happening in here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really like the crux of meditation is like, you be in your being.
Yes.
And that's where it's at, is like, you don't have to have external, but also you do have to function, you do have to have a voice in society. So it's weird to be able to feel like you can't just sit out and then pop in every now and then and expect people to know what to say to you if you're, it's very strange. And then when you're, not like I'm a significant public figure, but when you're an entertain, you know, so it's like you have to have a presence. So it's very weird. It's very weird because it, certainly when I started comedy, that wasn't something that, you know, you had to think about or whatever. So
Right.
I'm very clumsy with it.
You're booking shows and you're performing and you're working on your craft, and it's really about the people in that room, or perhaps those that would listen to an album or see a special or watch a show that you produced. But it's not about daily, weekly, monthly stats on the content that you're dropping, which is what we're dealing with now.
I think I just feel, I think I'm just stressed out by Twitter. I think I just am not as good, you know, like, because Janine Garofalo said one time on stage, she was like, I cringe myself to sleep. And I was like, boy, that is the, as with so many things by her, that's the perfect way to put it, of like laying, you know, bed, like think of the day and just going, so like, just the idea of like, no, you just have to keep putting out there. It's like, I rethink everything. This is tough, but it's the world. It's fine. There are worse problems.
Yes. I think the best ones are the folks that just naturally have an internal dialogue that's interesting and funny or wackadoodle enough to make you laugh. And they're just quick at putting that out on the social media.
Yes.
I mean, they're the folks that do that. The Chrissy Teigens of the world that are known for that. I mean, it's all external dialogue. And it is funny and it's entertaining. And even when she doesn't give you any context to anything, you just kind of imagine what the situation is. And you're like, yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's really funny.
But that doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah.
And it doesn't occur to everyone to do that.
Yeah, good point. I think mine is just, I always want to like have a longer, you know, whatever, and then by the end I'm inherently talking myself out of it. So it's not.
Well, you're a writer.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too.
And is that,
I want to mull over this
start
and
before so the show you talked about, the MTV show you talked about in Austin, that's Austin Stories.
Yeah.
Correct?
Uh-huh.
And what was talk a little bit about what you did on that, but I also want to talk about you as a writer.
Oh, okay. And also a thing with me that ties into sort of what you talk about with art is like, so I'm from a little town I'm from Grand Prairie, Texas, and we were never like, my fiance is a trumpet player, and I talked to his mom just the other night, and she was like, you know, that's what he decided to do, and his dad was a trumpet player in the military, and like, he at 10, he's like, I'm gonna be a trumpet player. So they were like, okay, then here's how that's gonna work. And she was like, you must have had that from your parents or something. And I was like, oh, they still don't want me to be doing, you know, what I'm doing. Like, no. Or I was like, no, they were really anti. And then she goes, oh, until they realized you could make a living at it. And I was like, no. Like, I think it's so funny that you think that. Like, no.
They're still waiting for that degree in accounting.
They
and a
are
real job.
very much happy for me to go back to teaching, but it's so I family of teachers. My dad worked at City Hall. Mom's a teacher. Like, just normal people. We might, but there wasn't even anyone in the family who owned their own business. You know, like something that's like you're creating your own destiny. You know, I even now it baffles me. Like, I'm fascinated by this topic you're fascinated by as well, because I'll see like a liquor store and I'm like, somebody owns that liquor store. And I don't mean like a chain, but like there's somebody owns that store.
Yes.
Whatever. How do they know somebody's gonna come buy something that day? Like, you don't, you just buy the room and stock it up and here's how we do, you know, like there's you don't know any of those things. So I find it fascinating when, and because there are most venture, because my family was like, when you teach or you're at City Hall, they're like, here's what the next 40 years of your life are. You literally get legislated incremental raises.
Yep.
And you know what they are. And you know in 2 years you get a 2% raise. And you know in 10 years, you whatever. Like you know it from day one. So like I am so mentally ill-equipped for like, I'm just gonna hope people think I'm funny. You know, like it's just like jumping into like, like a swimming pool of maybe people applauding or walking away. I'm just going to do this.
Here I go.
Yeah. So it was a big deal for me to, you know, I went to UT, I got educated, and then I wanted to do comedy. And then my mom was like, well, you get a teaching certificate. So I started teaching 7th grade, which is exactly what she taught. And it took me like 20 years into adulthood to realize how insane of like, I taught school because my mom told me to. Like, that's like so embarrassing. Like, but I literally, and because it just, here's not a thing I want to do, but it comes easily to me and it feels like the family, but it feels very familiar.
Yep.
So I can do it and I can excel at it. And I can also, there is a purpose to teaching. So it's not like I'm, you know, like I'm actually connecting with kids and, you know, you can do these things. But I did stand up at night and I did like the artist way. I did, you know, so many things to like I just wanted to like move from like, my plan was in 3 to 5 years, maybe I can just be a full-time comedian. So that was really my thrust at art that you're talking about. And in 1 year, MTV came to town and they saw several of us and they said, oh, we want to do a show with you. And we worked on and off and then it didn't happen after the end of a year. And so which was kind of a relief to me because I was like, too soon. A year of open mics.
Oh, wow.
Too soon. So then they came back in 2 years. And the people who had said no left and the people who loved us were in charge. I mean, and literally they were like, we want to revisit. And that became MTV's first scripted sitcom with Chip Pope and Howard Kramer, and it was on the air. And I was, you know, so I'd gone from I taught for 3 years and then had the show. So I went from teaching to stand up to we're starring on the show. And our contribution was, I think Chip wrote an episode, but it was sort of like contributing to the writing, but we weren't, you know, we had writers. We weren't writing it up because we didn't really understand script structure and that sort of thing. So then after that, I was with like, you know, William Mort, like fancy agent and trying to act, and I wasn't getting hired to act. I came very close to some very exciting things and then just didn't. And then I kind of got into writing. And I worked on some web series, and then I wrote on Blue Collar TV and the George Lopez Show and Samantha Who, and I sold several shows. And so I just like, and I kind of stand-up took a back seat, and I was like, oh, I'll be one of those successful writers who used to be a stand-up. And then like that kind of, not like stopped, but it was just like, you know, it I don't know, you know, it's just a process of how those things go. So I've written on like Emmy-winning shows and BAFTA-winning shows and Mom on CBS and all kinds of great shows. And then it was actually when I started back at Mom that I was like, felt like I wanted to pick up stand-up again. I'd never stopped.
Okay.
I'd never decided I quit, but I didn't do it a ton. So it took me a while, and then made an album, and I'm glad that people enjoy it because it's like I almost quit, I guess. It was part of the part of my story on that. But I guess for me it's I love writing on shows, but I love selling them more, which is another version of art of just it's almost like I don't feel quite right anywhere. But when I audition as an actor, I kind of look like an idiot because the words aren't, you know, I have technique, I've taken classes, I can do the thing, you know.
Yeah.
And but like when somebody goes, oh, hey, will you be in my movie? I like a year ago, a friend, he made this movie he's an old character actor, not an old, but he's been around a while. So his friends are J.K. Simmons, Brian Dennehy's in the movie. Like these great people are in it. And he was like, "Oh, will you do this role?" And at the end of the day, they're like, "You're so good. You're so," and I'm just laughing because my experience, if people don't know me and I walk into an audition, they're like, "I don't get it." But when people if people like you see me on or hear me and they know me, then they're like, "Oh, that's so great." And it's like, I guess that's any artist. I don't know. It's just the weirdest thing to me that like I'm an A or a D to you. Like,
Well, I feel like I don't. For me, it would be because I feel like I know you a little bit inside out, and I don't know you at all. But what you've shared,
I'm an A to you.
You're an A to me.
But then that dude making the list is like, she's a D.
Wow. Okay.
It's just like
voice in Laura's head. Could you just put that dude to bed? Just put that dude to sleep. Okay. However you need to do it.
But as an example, he's actually a helpful example of like, you're not. I used to think, and I used to say it to people of like, you know what? Not everybody has a Garth Brooks CD. He's doing fine. Like that's any artistic endeavor is like, somebody like, I don't like Mariah Carey. And I want to stab my ears out. Like I can't, it is a dog whistle scream. I can't, she's fine. She doesn't need me. Right. She doesn't need, she doesn't need to get me on board. She's doing all right. Like
she's not at the top of your list, but she's fine.
Perfectly what. So, and that's just, I think any artistic endeavor is like, yes. It's better for me, I think, even instead of like, no, you're not like a D to, just be like, yeah, you're a D to some people. You're the worst comic somebody's ever seen. And just accept that and then be like, oh, but then all these other people are going to like you. And that's just what life is. It's sort of a kind of a seemingly negative but healthy mindset, I think.
But it's impossible to be all things, all people, because everyone's experience is different. And when you were saying earlier about you do your show and it makes someone feel less alone, when you said that, you think that's me too, and I feel less alone. And that's the benefit of that art. But it's because they've had a similar experience or an experience they can connect that to, assimilate that to. Whereas that's not going to be the case for everyone.
Yeah,
it's going to be someone else's comedy that speaks to them. Because there are definitely, I'm easy to laugh, but there are definitely comics where I'm like, nope, no thanks.
Yeah, no, for sure, me too.
Not getting that. That makes me feel bad about myself when I listen to it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That it's like that's not my thing. So, yeah, it is interesting to. I've had in my career, so like some people, and I'm kind of jealous of them. Like, we have a channel on all the time for our dog. So we have, it's just a stupid lead-in, but we, like when we leave, there's something on TV, and so there's a channel that comes through Antenna, and it's almost always on this, and it just shows old shows, and like anyway, Will and Grace was on, but Laura Keitlinger wrote or like was a consultant for Will and Grace, and then she is again, and she has such this great specific voice that if you're doing a project and you're like, oh, I need. You know who I want for this? Laura Keitlinger.
Yeah.
And she's going to do this thing and she also she's doing How to Hate Yourself on January 5th at the Improv. I love her. Or like we were watching Miss Maisel last night, and like Jen Kirkman works on that. And like I saw the speech. There was a speech she gave on the show that the character gave, and I was like, I truly believe Jen Kirkman wrote that entire. It was very much like her brand, what she's but I have written kids shows. I've sold 2 kids shows, a multicam. I've written a sketch show. I wrote on Rosie O'Donnell's talk show that was on OWN. I teach meditation. I do comedy. I sold a really kind of a transgressive girl show to FX. And I wrote on the George Lopez show, and I wrote on I don't have that. I'm a little, don't fit in anywhere, do fit in everywhere a little thing, which is like, that's just what I have. So so it's kind of an interesting thing to me of like, I think I was always afraid with my art to like really, what is my thing that I am, and really dig in there, because there's also another part of me that's just polite and I want to get along with everybody. And in a way that's its own thing. I mean, if you want to kind of draw a bigger circle around it and go, well, then that's what you are. You know, like this is who you are, but you're also polite. Okay, whatever. I don't know. But I kind of, that's always been because on MTV, we were asked to like star as ourselves. So like 3 years into stand up, when you're still just trying to be funny, I was like, well, who are you? What is this thing that you are? And I was like, I don't know, I'm a pretty responsible, kind of responsible play. Like things that aren't funny. Like that's not funny. Like Bert Kreischer is like, has a thing, you know, like that's his thing. And like, you can like it or not like it, but he really has this thing that's like delicious if you're really, that's the thing you want. And then I'm kind of like, I just want everybody to feel better. Like I'm a little.
I want to know where Bert gets his tan, but that's a whole other. I had so much.
I'll bet somebody here can tell you.
I was like, wow, look at him with his shirt off and he's not body shamed at all. I'm like, wait a second, that's a fake tan. Moving on.
Wow, what an interesting.
Anyway.
I can't wait for you to confront him with that when he's on.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
It's fun. You're like, let's talk about your skin.
Right. Because I think we've got something in common. Anyway, what I find interesting is, so first of all, asking anyone in their 20s, who are you? Good luck.
Nuts, right? Yeah.
Or just be yourself. Okay, that's going to change about every cycle of the moon. if we're lucky, and if we're lucky and we're living a life where you can do that at all.
That's true.
Well, and maybe not everyone would consider that lucky, but if you've got the freedom to do that. But I hear what you're saying, and it sounds like you do have a voice. You have a comedic voice, but you're inspired by different things at different times. Yeah. And you just have a variety of funny that's going on there.
Yeah.
And I think when you say you wrote and sold a show, and just pardon me because I don't know what that means. Oh, sure, yeah. You write the whole thing, or you write?
I've sold 5 shows, so like, which I guess I mentioned because I'm proud of it.
You should be.
Because it's hard to sell a show.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to sell more, and I'm like, well, I hope I figure out how to be able to just keep doing that. It means you have an idea for a show. Sometimes you write the script on spec, like for free, or sometimes you can just sell it off a pitch. Basically, you just have the idea, sort of 3 or 4 pages of, and you go in to sell a show. So, one was I actually still love this script, and someone who can help me make it, who's listening, we should make it together. I wrote a script about it was basically me in my 20s, but a girl very much like me who kind of finds a suit that gives her superpowers, and she's not interested in this, and like very much inspired by Greatest American Hero, but also by just me and like, so it was, I had a husband who was like super nerdy and into that stuff, and I just wasn't. But he was not. But so it was sort of inspired by that too. Like she's with this guy, he's super nerdy, and then she ends up like they go to different places for Halloween. She gets a costume from the thrift store with her friend, and like, it's just a dumb superhero. Like, this is crazy. And she's chubby, and she wears glasses, and I wore glasses, and she's like, oh, this is crazy. But like at the party, she realizes like she kind of has laser fingers, and she kind of can like want the brownie to come to her, and then it kind of does come to her, and she's like, how much did I drink? You know, like how much bug juice did I have?
What's in the brownie?
Yeah, exactly. And that she's like, and then realizes like she had accidentally got this thing that was meant for someone else.
By putting on the suit.
Yes, and now she has it, and now she basically is a reluctant superhero. But she's also plus size, and she also addresses, which of all the superhero shows that we still have, I wrote this a long time ago, and like we've had 100 superheroes. It still has not addressed this. The closest in Deadpool, there was a kid who was like, we don't have any plus size superheroes, and like I appreciate that. But also she's like, I don't want to do, this isn't what I want to do. Like her boyfriend is like, but you have a responsibility, you know, with great responsibility with great power comes responsibility. And she's like, you're able-bodied. You could be a cop. You're not a cop. What do we?
Yeah.
Do we have to help? You know, like,
Yeah.
you're pretty good at math. You're not an accountant. You know, like, we actually get to do what we want to do. And what, you know, and so it's, and it's metaphorically a woman who's uncomfortable with her power, which is also all women. So it is a woman, you know, a woman coming into her power and just kind of being like, this isn't what I, but then there's funny stuff too. Like, it doesn't, you also don't get the powers you want. She's like, it doesn't even give me 20/20 vision. You know, like, I'm still wearing glasses.
Glasses.
Like, this is so embarrassing. Or like, you can run so fast that you could go to Hawaii and back in 2 seconds, but you can't take anyone because they can't. So what are you doing?
Right.
Or just go all these places by myself? You know, like,
Yeah.
what? Just the way to, and maybe it's my how to hate yourself voice of just finding a way to find the bummer and like having like, we have a microwave. I don't need laser fingers. And just like, what am I? Anyway, so I called it So I Found a Super Suit. And essentially the way I sold it was I gave it to my agent and she was not interested. I think because it was a superhero thing. She was like, it's so over. Even this was 15 years ago and it's still not over. 10, whatever.
Yeah.
And she, but my manager was really into it. And I ended up doing a stage reading. So this is very much with the theme of your show because it came from me.
Yeah.
I wrote the thing. I wrote it for free. We did a staged reading, which I have done 3 or 4 of these of you get your best, most talented, parentheses, most famous friends you can find. Matt Walsh played the boyfriend in this. I've done a reading where like I had Billy Gardell play my brother, and you just ask people who are glad to help out. My friends with Mo Gaffney, if you know who that is, I always get her to do something in these things. And Maurice LaMarche is a really famous voiceover guy, and like I've had him do stage directions, which is it's a really famous voice. Anyway, so
I heard Aaron laugh.
yeah, Aaron gets it, and that guy. Thanks for the cutaway. So I anyway did a stage, and then my agent saw it, and she goes, "Oh, okay, I see where the laughs are." And then this was pretty exciting showbiz. Entourage was on at the time, and it felt entourage-y. Was my agent said
That just sounds like something in my stereotypical head. That sounds like something an agent would say. It sounds entourage-y.
Oh, that wasn't what she said. I'm saying my experience to me felt entourage-y.
Okay.
But she saw, because nothing about the show was entourage-y. But she saw it and she goes, "Oh, I see what you're talking about now. It's really funny." And she goes, she sent me an email that said, I'm going to get it. I got it to Barry Sonnenfeld. And to me, I was like, well, I can't talk. I'm golfing with Brad Pitt. Like, it just seemed like, almost like the stupidest thing you could say, like, okay. But then I met with Barry Sonnenfeld, and he was really into it, and we sold it to ABC.
Nice.
The end. So it was like, not even with it. There was another fun thing of a guy who used to be the president of ABC was also interested. So he was the producer. Barry was going to direct, and we had some meetings, and we took it into ABC Studios. They made a contract. We took it into ABC. They bought it. So, and it was based on a pitch. So I had the script that got the producer and the director on board and the agent interested, and I did a reading and people are laughing. So this thing had to exist. But when I went in, all these people heard, they had read some of my stuff to know, okay, you're a capable writer. But we changed so many things about it that they were just hearing like a 15-minute, here's what the show would be pitch.
Okay.
And then 24 hours later said, like, okay, we'll buy it.
Wow.
So then they're basically they're giving you money to write the script, which is a fun trick if you've already written the script.
Right.
When you're like, oh, they're just
done.
Job done. But so many things change. There's always, so they're paying you to go through a process of, and it's basically happening now. So like for network television, all summer writers were pitching ideas. And then in the fall, they started buying the ideas. And so you were reading in Deadline, oh, so-and-so has a deal at Fox, and so-and-so has a deal at NBC. And that was all network. Cable goes year round. So now writers who sold a show, they write their show September, October, November. You want it in by Christmas or the beginning of January.
Okay.
Then all those are the pilot scripts. And then they take like a month to decide, are we going to shoot the pilot? And then in March, April, May is when actors are very excited because that's when pilots are being cast and they're in these. So it's like they buy, let's say 100, all the networks, and then they pay for 100 and then they're going to shoot 25 or something. And then of those 25, they're going to pick up 7 or whatever. I'm making up the numbers, but
it funnels down.
It funnels down in that way.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So the money, obviously, is when they make the pilot. So it's like they're like, in the contract, we give this X amount of money, whatever, $100,000 to write the script. If we make a pilot, it's another, let's say, $100,000. If it goes to series, it's, $30,000 every week for 22 episodes. It gets very exciting. So
And
already
then you
a good
continue
deal.
to write episodes?
Yeah, then you would write, if it goes to series, you have a team of writers and all that stuff. So anyway, so I've basically to script. So one of them has gone to pilot, a Nickelodeon one, and then so essentially when you sell a script, you've sold an idea for a script, and that was just one example. But
Nice. Thanks for walking us through that, because I think it is.
you seemed interested.
I'm
Midway,
very
I was
interested.
like, gosh, what am I? I'm lecturing, but I was like, well, all right. It is interesting. And if you don't know, it is interesting because and as you're doing it, it's interesting. And it does change a little. Like Netflix doesn't really buy pilots. They buy a series or they don't, pretty much. So you're getting more money up front, probably. I've not sold something to Netflix yet. Right. But I think you also don't get residuals because things don't air on Netflix the way they do somewhere. They can't police the whatever. So I think you basically get your money up front, and then that's it. And so I've written stuff for the BBC, and it's similar. Like the day they give you this amount of money to write your thing, and then the day they start shooting, they give you that amount of money again to just use it forever, however they want.
Okay.
So that's how there's not residuals over there.
It's
so
not
over
based
here,
on use.
Yeah, over here we've had residuals for so long it seems normal, but it's not. It's actually a real gift. Because and I remember when MASH, Alan Alda was fighting for residuals and stuff because they were like, you can't just keep showing this forever and not paying people who didn't
Yeah.
There's a whole history of residuals. So,
But because the network makes money when they re-air it, if there are ads placed on the re-air.
of course,
on the
they're
rerun.
always making money. That's why it was called out of that's not okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
It's kind of an interesting thing.
So you're still writing.
I am writing right now. I am in the beginning stages of several pitch. I'm in the second stage of several pitches. So earlier this year, I developed some ideas for shows, and one on my own, and then a couple with other people. And then we went around to producers. And so you get an appointment with a producer that your manager sets up or whatever. And you're like, here's my idea for a show. And you're really excited. And you try to convince them what a great show this will be. And then they say, thank you. It's so nice to meet you. And you get water. Some people call it the water tour. You always get a bottle of water. And then they get back to you on because they sort of sit back do we think we can sell this? Based on what is out there, what's our brand? What can we bring to, is there a star we work with a lot that we think she'll like it and we'll put her, can we package it, whatever it is? And they either, it's like pledging a sorority. They either, pick you or they do. I mean, you just kind of go from thing to thing of which I never did, but I lived in a dorm where everybody did that. So I get what it was, but
GDI.
Yeah, but it is. It's like you're going from house to house. What about me? So
Do you like me?
also hard on your psyche.
Let's stop and not insult anybody.
Do you think we'll make millions of dollars together? Nope, shuffling off. So I'm at the stage of 4 projects are with producers, and now it's a matter of now we get on board, we rejigger the pitch to take to studios.
Gotcha.
And you just hope, because I've sold a couple of things without, I guess 2 things I've sold with, I had a 500-pound gorilla, the Barry Sonnenfeld, and I sold another show with Katie Seagal. So it helps.
Yeah.
But then I've also pitched a show with a big person that didn't sell. So you just don't, whatever. And then I've sold a couple that like they just like the idea or the mood or so. I mean, it's very. So there's a lot of gears moving with that stuff, but it is another example of your show of I'm just trying to make a thing happen. Like, and I don't know what that is. Like, I feel like when you talk about it, it's beautiful and heroic, and I love how it sounds. And in some ways, the truth is, well, nobody else hired me. You know, like I think in some ways that's what it is. Of like, well, if you have a job on Modern Family for 8 years, like you're not doing that, and it's not because you're not whatever. Like I just think like that's kind of what it is here in this realm of like I'm a fit for this thing, or like maybe I'm not right now and I'll do my own thing and like be a maverick.
But I guess
you're forced to be a maverick if no one picks you. If no one picks you for the tame, you got to start your own kickball tournament, right?
there you go. There you go.
Let's put that on t-shirts.
Let's put that on t-shirts. Not everybody does that though, Laura. Not everybody does that.
What do they do? Just go home and live with dad? I can't do that. I can't do that.
Right. Well, there you go. Cannot do that.
Fear of living with dad.
Could be.
Yeah. Well, fair. Then God bless him.
Go back to teaching and not necessarily be the best teacher they could be because it's not what they truly feel strongly about, or in worst case, resent it a little bit.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to have that teacher.
Yeah. Unlike any teacher you've ever
So many. or any line of work.
Yeah.
You know,
that's really true.
The frustrated fill in the blank is not a good time. When you talked about going from teaching to doing stand-up at the same time, so a silly question.
I took a nap.
Okay, in between, yeah.
Was that your question?
But when you're teaching, you're up in front of an audience as well.
Yeah.
And was it hard? Did you sometimes lose yourself? And did you ever swear in front of the kids or tell a
they were 12.
joke?
I mean, you know what? I started. It's funny because I'm pretty good friends with one of them on Facebook, which I think is so funny. But I started teaching at 22, 23, and I was teaching 7th grade. They were literally 10 years younger than me. Like, that's not a lot of, like, we listen to the same music, and you're more like a camp counselor in a sense, you know. I wasn't like 20 years, you know, there wasn't that much of a gap. So, and then funny, in my teaching, the student teaching was high school. I mean, you're like 3 years older than them. Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So it's and also when you're little and I kind of look young, and like, it was just, having a sense of authority was weird. But no, for me, I don't know if I mean, I was a pretty casual teacher, but I also, I don't know, you'd find your own, I guess with both of those things, you find your own voice on how you connect with people. Yeah. And like, that's its own fascinating study with stand-up of like how, and I noticed it, one thing that was, and it's so different now because he's a huge star, but when Zach Galifianakis, when you just see him, and he says things that I would just marvel at, like, literally no one can get away with saying that. And it's an inexplicable, that's how somehow he can say this and people aren't running out the door. Like, it's a really fascinating thing as a stand-up because people are, and I guess here comes my meditation teacher, like, your consciousness, that's like, we're speaking words to each other, but like our consciousness is connecting and communicating with each other's consciousness. And that's what is coming through in a room with people and on stage with people. And then, so it's a real, I didn't mean to take it that deep, but it is, there's a lot going on when people are communing in that way, like with stand-up. So it's interesting to see, like, and I've been lucky that, like, I'm kind of likable on stage from the very beginning. Like, there's something as I'm non-threatening to everyone. And like, it was told, your friend Kamau Bell said to me what he was, because I was really mad. I was raging about something on stage one night in San Francisco, and he was laughing, and I had a great set. And he was like, I know you're actually mad, but it is funny when you're mad. Because I'm just this little innocuous thing that's like, rah, rah, and I'm really mad. And like, no one's too upset because I look like your friend from college. Like I look like half of America's college roommate or whatever it is. Like, so
You also feel like you're in
That's
control
lucky.
of it.
oh, that's
you,
nice.
You feel like you're in control of it, even though you're angry. You're not off the rails.
Yeah, I think that's a weird thing about stuff you can't help about yourself, where it's like, and this comes back to when we were talking about my comedy brand or whatever. Like I love renegades and rebels and Sandra Bernhard and like somebody who's like, I'm calling this thing out, and I loved Roseanne, and I love I like warrior spirit people, which I just don't, I am a safe space, and like that. So in sort of comedy archetypes, I'm what you would call the anchor. I'm the smart one. There's the lovable loser, and I'm the one that goes, come on, and like you're not worried. And something that's said to me all the time in my many times in my adult life, like when I don't know where money is coming from or what, and people's like, I'm not worried about you. That's said to me more than anything, like, because when I walk in a room, there's the vice principal's here vibe or whatever it is, like, no one, that's just archetypically sort of how I come across when I come in a room.
Like you have your act together.
Yeah. Which is partly not funny. Which is partly like it's not hilarious, like I don't have that edgy thing, but I have whatever the thing that I have, so yeah, it's an interesting thing to sort of sort out of, what works for you or what doesn't, or finding the thing. But it also might make me, because there is something in me, like I am a teacher, like I taught 7th grade, and I didn't want to do it. But I did like it, and then when I started teaching meditation, I just started laughing because I was like, you just had to make your way back to teach. But I didn't want to teach public school, but I do love to, and I've started teaching how to write a sitcom, how to write a sitcom pilot. And I've taught privately, and I started teaching at a comedy club, and I'm talking to somebody else about teaching there. And it's like, I mean, again, I'm so annoyed with myself. Here comes meditation teacher again. But like, we have a karma and we have a dharma, and we have, there's something you're meant to be doing in life. And like, even on stage a little, I mean, I guess in a certain, how to hate yourself in a certain light is teaching of like, I don't want to come out and say it, but at the end of it is like, I hope we've all learned to not hate ourselves. I hope we've all learned that we have this voice, and tomorrow when you see a Tesla, you don't have to want to die. Do I have to come out and say it? But it is kind of an exercise in that of like, let's shine the light on that thing and just like have some power over it instead of, just hiding back under the covers or whatever. But
you're uncovering some insight, and that is informing, and that's educating. You're definitely a teacher. I've listened to the Will You Med With Me podcast episodes, and because I really, up until just a few years ago into adulthood, was embarrassed to say that I just didn't know how to meditate. I didn't know what it was.
Don't be embarrassed.
And
we're not taught in this culture.
No. And
we're taught
so
like
simple.
If you're not making money, you're not using your time wisely. That's like the main tenet of America. Yeah. So like the idea of like, I'm just going to close my eyes. Like, it's also funny to me why so many articles that are pro meditation mention that it ups your productivity, because it's almost the only way to get an American to do it.
To sell
you don't have to say that in other places. I'm assuming they just don't. It's not like in India they're like, you'll be rich, but in America you literally have to be like, you know what, Russell Simmons does it, and then people are like, okay. As long as millionaires are doing this, I'll do it. Like, no, like it's not okay enough that it like, it fuels your immune system, and you actually get healthier and stronger, and you feel better, and you have better sex and better relationships, and you better interpersonal relationships, and it helps your brain actually grow, and you have. We're like, oh, I'll make money. Okay, yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna. What do I do? Oh, notice my breath. Okay, cool. When do I make money yet? That's hats off to Graham Elwood. I feel like he would enjoy my socialist rant.
Oh,
about meditation. But it is weird. It is a weird thing that like we have to make it like you'll be fit and like everything.
What's in it?
Like it's meditation is so anti-materialistic, but in America that's how you sell it. That's how you brand it. You'll get all those, it's about, really like feeding your soul, but you will get all those materialistic things you want. And it's like, it's annoying to me.
It is.
But it's everywhere. Anyway,
I
you
like
didn't know how to do it.
I didn't know
and
how
I've
to
helped
do
you
it. You've helped me do it. I feel like I had kind of gotten over the I don't know how to do this business, but listening to your podcast, it is so simple and accessible.
Oh, good.
And it's a nice way to have a guided meditation that's not very long, and it's not it's very practical. I think,
good.
as well. But you also include in there when you're teaching. I listened to one where you did the class at Universal Studios.
Oh.
And so I hear what you're teaching other people in the class. And there's a little bit of humor in there. So what you just said about there's your karma and your dharma, you are an artist, a teacher, a comic, a writer. You are all of those things, and they show up. It sounds like they just show up in everything that you do. And you just keep doing what you feel led to do. It's not that you pushed against anything having to do with teaching. You just do it in the way that shows up for you.
You're my favorite person.
Very inspired. Likewise. So we're going to end soon. I'm going to ask you, one, what else do you want to talk about? And then two, should we just do some meditation right here, right now?
We can do that. Would Aaron join us?
I don't know if he can. Can you let go of the wheel?
He can do it from back there.
That's true.
Yes, we can do that. Well, I want to publicly apologize for being so lazy about my podcast. It is honestly that, and I think about addressing it on there, and then I'm like, if somebody's tuning in, they don't want to hear your weird excuses, but like, I talk myself out of it. I'm like, does anybody care? Does this even it's like my standard. It's like, why can't you be one of 1,000 podcasts that people listen to sometimes? Why can't you just do that? And I just get like, is it good? I don't know, whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about. It didn't take me 4 years to start this.
Exactly. And I think of all my friends with their amazing podcasts, and like, I just am like, I did start when people, I just stop and start and do whatever. And it's challenging to do. And it's interesting that that's what you're talking about on the show. It is, you must know the book, The War of Art. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stephen Pressfield.
You could be making this up right now and really have fun with me.
No, not The Art of War, but there's a book called The War of Art.
Okay.
I've read it.
Oh, yeah. Aaron's chiming in. Yeah, it's called by this guy who's a writer. He wrote Legend of Bagger Vance and many other things, but he wrote about not writing, basically. He wrote about, I call it the How to Hate Yourself voice. Some people call it imposter syndrome. He's like that critic, that inner critic.
Yeah.
And he's like the war of art, that it is a war you have with this thing in your brain that we all have of like staring that down every day. And he writes a lot of war movies, so he uses a lot of that language. But like you're battling this inner critic to show up to do your work, to claim your space in the world,
for sure.
To put the thing out. And it's like, yeah, you get it immediately, because it's just a great thing to have on your, because it is. We don't even notice we're talking ourselves out of it. We're just like, I'm doing the world a favor. Who needs another podcast? And then you're like, a year passes and you're like, I could have had 50 episodes. Because every time someone tells me what you just did, of like, which it means so much to me that anyone says like, I listen, it helped. Mm-hmm. I guess like really, in my mind, I just want it to be raining money and compliments. That's all I want. I just want to I want to get hit in the head in the morning with a brick of money, and just I want to like turn the corner and like 80. I just want like a fire hose of money and because but just validation.
Yeah,
that's my version of validation all day long. But really, my internal values is it means so much to me when someone goes, that thing you did helped. Mm-hmm. That thing you said helped. Whether it's How to Hate Yourself, or I'm helping you write a sitcom, or I'm helping you meditate, or I'm helping you with 7th grade reading, it really has always meant something great to me when people are, oh, like, because I encountered you, I'm a, micro bit better in this way. Thank you. I like that.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm useful. I just, that feeling of being useful is really exciting. It's exciting. It's everything really.
Yeah.
So like, that's really what I do. Like, I mean, I'm still open to money and compliments, but it's, so every time when people are like, oh, I really like that, then I feel bad I didn't. Anyway, but my thought moving forward is this. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
So I do How to Hate Yourself live at the Improv. And then I also like the So I was just going to, like, on my podcast stream, just do every other one. There's a How to Hate Yourself, and then there's a Meditate with Laura, and then there's a How to Hate Yourself and a on the 1s and 3s, because then I can interview people who did the show and even play a clip of the show.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about that voice in the head, which is kind of the problem. And then meditate, which is kind of the solution, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If that's a question, my answer is yes.
Yeah. I guess I just laid that, but that was my thinking moving forward.
Yeah. And for someone who's like just trying to find the magic Saturday night when I can get to LA and park and get in the door and all those things to see the show more than once, I would love to hear it.
Oh, good.
Especially the one you did, not this most recent one, but the one right before that. You had some folks on there.
Oh, the comics that were on it.
Super special.
Was that Baron Vaughn?
Yes.
Yeah, he's very special.
And I could tell the way you were promoting it. You could just tell the way you're promoting it, the feeling you had for the people you had on the show. Every time. I remember one time you're like, oh, I kind of overdid it with headliners on this one. I still remember that.
Last
promotion.
January, it was a show with, like, it was crazy. But that's what this coming January is. It's Laura Keitlinger, Kathy Ladman, Baron Vaughn is on it. This woman named Maggie May, who's amazing. Like, there's some comics who are just naturally honest and funny, and it's magical. It's the magical thing when you go, hey, would you talk about how to hate yourself? And someone says yes, because I often, like, I'm even a little embarrassed to ask people sometimes, because it's like, I've had more than one person go, I'm asked to do shows like this a lot, like, how are you a piece of shit? How do I hate, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. I certainly didn't mean that.
See, if you had it on the podcast, they could, if they so choose, listen a little bit before and get what the show.
Yeah, I think also it's a great show, and, like, 99.9%. I mean, even more than that of the most people can't go to a show in LA, even if you're in LA. So certainly if you're not. And so I just forget that there's, because the thing pops up, who do I think I am or whatever. But it's like, you're someone who makes stuff that some people like to listen. So just make it available to them. Like, calm down. Anyway, I have to battle that thing. But we can.
That's your battle.
Yeah. But we can meditate if you want to do it for a second or.
Yeah. Just a
minute.
I mean, like
quick one.
I just love at the end of the album, you had the audience do it for, spoiler alert.
Just give them a taste.
Yeah, just a little taste. And I don't know, for some reason I feel like I have to take off my glasses
to do it. Yeah, you kind of don't want a thing on your face. Yeah.
Ugh.
I will, for anyone listening too, that if you're new to it, if you're driving, don't do this part, listen later. But here's all you do to meditate that I love is you just sit easily, just comfortably. Just close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Aaron, are you doing it?
Yeah.
Just close your. Yeah, you are. And just notice your breath is the easiest way to do it. And there's something kind of interesting about noticing your breath is, one, this was maybe the first time today you noticed it, or even this week, or even in years, maybe. But it's been there the whole time. Keeping you alive, working, like, it's been there. So you just notice it. You're not trying to change it. You're not concentrating. It doesn't have to be deeper or better or anything. And now you're going to have thoughts, which you probably are already, of like, are they really doing this? Should I do this? What am I doing? I feel silly, whatever. It doesn't matter what the thoughts are. And as you meditate, you notice your breath, and you're going to have thoughts, and your mind is going to wander into thoughts. It's totally normal. And as you're meditating, when you become aware, oh, my attention's on my thoughts, you just notice your breath again. Just noticing the way you might glance down at the fourth finger of your left hand. So you can go ahead and open your eyes. So do you feel more, and Erin, you can open your eyes. Do you feel more relaxed or less relaxed than when we started?
I definitely feel more relaxed. Should have done this at the beginning.
That's such a good point. I should do it when I start talking to anyone. Main takeaway, it's that easy.
Mm-hmm.
Just when you make a choice, and I guess I do love teaching this because I do get excited to say this. It is like so punk rock to choose to close your eyes and notice your breath. Like in this world of like, go, 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 aren't you making money? What are you're supposed to be at Starbucks. Why aren't you in like everything that we're supposed to be doing? It is so it is so Rage Against the Machine to like, you know what? I'm the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to close, even if for 5 minutes, you're putting a fence around this 5 minutes and you're going, no input. I'm not paying a bill. I'm not returning a phone call. I'm not looking at an email. I'm not looking at what's trending. No.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real flip off to life. It's like, there's a kind of a cool way of looking at it of like, no, like it's tough. It's like, I'm in control. So
notice this breath that's keeping you alive.
And then you notice, I can trip out on talking about the breath. Like your mother gave you that breath and her mother gave it to her. Down to the beginning person. That is how breath has gotten to you. If you really think for 2 seconds about where your breath came from, and it is there from your first moment to your it is completely sustaining you through your whole life. And sometimes we give it to another person or whatever. But like this breath has been handed down. And now you did nothing you have to do to earn it or keep it. So it really is like, it's this beautiful thing in nature, the same way a sunset is, or a waterfall. When you're in Hawaii, like, oh, we hiked 5 miles to see that waterfall. You have something just as amazing all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's just a matter of going, you know what? I'm shutting out the world. I'm the boss. It's very girl boss. I'm shutting out the world. I'm just going to notice my breath. There's no bad news. There's so 98% of it is you're cutting out the bad stuff that makes you feel bad. And you're just you're not doing anything and you're not even thinking. And you really just have the one little job in meditation. And it's just to give your mind a focus of like, oh, notice the breath. Some people it's a mantra or an image or, there's hundreds of ways to do it. But you just notice this easy breath and you're going to have thoughts and it's totally normal. And it'd be weird if you didn't. So you're going to have thoughts and you wander into thoughts and and on the breath and you just notice it again. And you're just like, oh, okay, I'm okay sitting here. Mm-hmm. But I do love letting people know, like, 30 seconds of making the choice to close your eyes and just notice your breath, like, is renewing. Anyway, I could go on. I will. Anyway, listen to, look me up, and I sometimes do podcasts. I should just put it that way. You guys, I do an irregular podcast of How to Hate Yourself and Meditate with Laura House on iTunes. And it's on everything, I guess.
The title is Meditate with Laura House.
Yes, but to be honest, the first podcast I started was called Laura House at Large, and that's actually what is in the domain. Because if you change it, everything gets deleted. So I keep changing the name of it. You're not supposed to, but I keep changing the name of the podcast. But that's where it is anyway. Yeah. But Laura House, there's There can only be so many Laura Houses with podcasts. I think you can find it pretty easily.
I found it, because I look it up, I remember, and I think I put in Will You Med With Me.
Will You Med With Me? It's been called that for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like, they're like, put your name in the thing and brand the whatever. And then med sounds like meds and it's always something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was thinking about, should I just call it Dude, Where's My Mantra? I was like, how far do you go? What do you do?
Okay.
Anyway,
I think keep meditation in the title. I like to call things what they are. That's just my
Meditate with cents. Laura House. I was like, maybe it just needs to be called that. So
maybe.
Yeah, we're trying it on. Anyway, tweet at me and let me know only good things.
Okay. And so
it's all I want.
So drop all of that information.
I'm Laura House is Twitter. LauraHouse.com is the website. I mean, I feel like Twitter's the easiest way to catch up on. Like I always post shows there, and it's probably the easiest way to find it. The Jackie and Laurie show, they're always mentioning me, so go ahead and follow. Whatever. If you could see what I was listening to, it would be the Dollop. So anyway, this is where you find me. But yeah, Twitter, I'm Laura House. The same Instagram, I'm Laura House. Instagram's a friendlier place, so feel free to find me on there too.
Well, yes.
It really is like a kinder, saner place.
Yeah. Twitter's a jungle.
But it was great talking to you. It's
was-
really a neat. It's a neat topic. It's neat to look at, like, art. Yeah, where is it coming from? It's like a thing in your soul, and then it's a room you can walk into and do. Yeah, it's amazing.
It means different things to different people, and I'm talking with artists, but part of it too is that there is this art to life that everybody has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Laura House.
course.
This is a joy, and part of, again, me doing this is really stepping forward and being willing to reach out and ask someone to be on the show and be okay with whatever the answer
Yeah.
is. When the
Huge.
answer is yes, it's bingo.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's so awesome.
thank
Cool.
you. All
Thank
right.
you. Enjoy talking to my fiance.
I will. Thank you for recommending and saying that, oh, yeah, that would be cool too.
He loves it.
That's going to be really fun. A musician. Awesome. All right. Thank you, Aaron.